I keep missing my fucking point with Edward, which is that I think the crux of it with him is that I distrust him not because he so rapidly falls in love, but because because with 100 years of experience under his belt, he falls in love and doesn't dare doubt it. Doubt is a fucking defining theme in romance. Doubt. Oh, do I? Don't I? Read fucking Jane Eyre. Read Bronte. Tell me that that doubt is not a core question.
This week, we're continuing Twilight in Part 2, aka Exasterbate, which apparently does not have a T.
Hi readers, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines, those swashbuckling ladies who have to work a little harder than expected for their happy ending.
Want to see what's next on our TBR list? Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Instagram for a sneak peek at upcoming content or to help us pick our next book.
Does everybody please have a shot ready?
I got a shot ready.
I've already taken 2.
I'm going to mispronunciate some shit.
Welcome to Twilight Part 2. We have Rob again as a guest speaker because we ran out of time during Part 1.
I'm so tired.
Okay. So we're going to try and get through this as fast as possible. Just so you know, we are recording Twilight's Part 1, 2, and 3 in the same session. We have had several cocktails to start.
Okay, I want to caveat, I love this book and this movie.
So do I, for that matter, honestly. I've become undiscerning as the drinks accumulate.
Where we left off is the car accident happened. Edward saved the day, but Bella misinterpreted his actions as, he saved me, but he's not talking to me the next day, so he must hate me and regret saving my life. That's where we left off with Part 1. So for Part 2, Mike, Eric, and Tyler, who are like the main 3 male figures outside of Eric in the store. Outside of Eric? I don't know where Eric came from. Outside of
Charlie, right?
Outside of Edward.
Outside of Edward, yeah.
Daddy issues.
Charlie's a male figure, too.
Outside of Eric.
We will just excuse this by the fact that Jordan has seen The Last Mermaid recently. We're just going to go with that. His name is Edward.
So Mike, Eric, and Tyler all tried to invite Bella to the spring dance. And she manages to avoid all of them, except there's this one very weird instance where she's in her truck in the parking lot of the high school, and she gets in line to kind of exit the parking lot. But Edward is in front of her in his shiny silver Volvo, and he just stops in the middle of the parking lot. And it's almost as if he plans this because Tyler comes up to her as she's sitting in her truck, I think. Is this right?
Yeah.
To ask her to the spring social.
Again, I feel like this kind of speaks to the fact that like Bella and Edward have this like secret knowledge of, I know that our relationship is something more and you need to alienate anyone else that's interested in you for the fact that you think that I'm interested in you, even though I'm giving you like all of these weird signals. But you need to accept the fact that me and you understand that you are not going to go to the dance with any of these weird dudes that you're not interested in and you're only interested in me. And I'm going to watch you do that.
So Bella,
again, this is caveat. I love Edward, and that maybe speaks to my own daddy issues in a way. Weirdly,
thanks for admitting that. We had to call you out on that.
But also, yeah.
I did miss that a little bit myself, though, because I remember the whole will you, won't you acknowledge on both parts? Will you, won't you acknowledge other parties' interest? I'd kind of just set that aside. That I don't want to say it was filler, but I mean that's kind of how it registered to me. Like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it.
Again, women see more into these weird, like nuanced, conversations than maybe men do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Edward is forcing Bella into this, like, you need to make a decision regarding this dance. But Bella's like, I don't want to go to this dance no matter what you say, no matter what. And I appreciated that about Bella. She's like, I don't like to dance. I'm not good at dancing. So even if Bedward even if Bedward weren't part of the picture, I would say no to all of these dudes.
Because that's exactly
I did.
You said bedward. I feel like that's a shot.
Yeah. Because even the end scene, she's like, I don't want to go to the prom. Why are you forcing me to the prom? And he has this kind of misconception that she thinks that she, is missing out on something by being with him. But I feel like he's kind of missing the point that he almost is coming from the perspective of like the adult perspective that like, oh, you need to go to these. You're going to think about it when you're older.
That's actually a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, like I have not thought about prom until, my partner talked about it and he's like, did you go to prom? And I'm like, well, yeah. And I feel like weirdly proud of that. Like, oh, I went to prom. But it's not one of those like you have to go to prom. It's a emotional, significant event in your life. Like, no, it's just some whoever inviting you to a party.
So
like, let's get that straight.
What's noticeable throughout this point in the story is that both Mike and Eric ask Bella, hey, like, I noticed you haven't talked to any other dudes. Like, you want to talk to me? And Bella's like, fuck no, I have no intention of going to the dance. I'm not a good dancer. I don't want to go. I have other plans. And it has nothing to do with Edward, which was actually somewhat refreshing.
Deeper, like I feel like this is kind of like a deep take, controversial opinion, but I feel like it has everything to do with Edward. So she's going through this, deep conversational attraction relationship with Edward as all of this is happening. And she has the misconception that she has to say no to all of these people that are asking her to the dance because Edward has this like, I'm not going to tell you I'm attracted to you, but we have this weird like thing going on. And like Bella feels like she has to say no or else it's invalidating whatever she has with Edward. But it's like, Edward, why don't you just like man up in the non like social conforming, like why don't you just be a person?
Because I feel like Bella's initial reaction to this whole spring dance social thing was like, absolutely not. I'm not a dancer. I'm clumsy, as evidenced by I can barely fucking walk to class without tripping over something, which also completely unrealistic. Like, how do you survive life? But also, it seems separate from Edward. And I think I valued that as a reader from Bella's perspective, that she is like, no, I don't want to go to this dance, not because of Edward, but because I don't want to go.
See, I thought, and that's probably like the Gen Z, Gen X, millennial. What are you from?
Take a shot, please.
That's
era.
Fair. I accept. She is from the Victorian era, though. But like Gen Z feels like this is some kind of like second conversation happening between regular conversation.
Between? Take a fucking shot, Katie.
Girl, you do not want me to take a shot.
I do, because I've taken 3. It's your turn.
But it's that secondary conversation that's happening. Okay, I will.
She's going to take a shot.
Belle, please save me.
Well, that's all. But she says Belle because Belle was on her
reader,
shot glass. Yeah.
I wish you could witness how visually catastrophic.
I think it's that's fair. It does taste like raisins.
It does.
I think that's because like Gen Z feels like there's subtext like behind their tweets when people say things because do you not understand any of what I just said?
No, I get what she's saying.
Yeah, subtext. Because it's like you're tweeting out into the void, but you're really talking to one person in particular. And it's like I'm not directly talking to you because I feel like cool about it, but I'm literally fucking talking to you. That's what this whole, girls' choice Tolo thing was about, is like I'm saying no to all these boys, but the subtext behind it is that I would say yes to you. But
you were talking about posting tweets that have really one target audience. To my mind, it's an equivalent. I'm sorry, I'm a millennial or an early millennial. I'm barely not a Gen Xer. It's like vague booking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, vague booking. That's the idea. You familiar with that term?
No.
Vague booking, like we're like, oh, if you've got a problem with me, you should just post it. And if you've got an issue and like you think my man belongs to you and blah blah blah. Like, all right, there's clearly a fucking drama cooking off behind the scenes here. Like, don't post about it. Just address it between the 3 to 6 people that are involved. But I mean, your 400 followers don't need to know. That's vague booking.
Because I feel like at this point, Bella understands that, maybe not explicitly that Edward understands people's voice and thoughts and stuff, but I feel like she has kind of an inclination at this point that maybe he's informed of things that normal people aren't. And so by her denying other people, she's saying that, like, I'm denying the regular. I am interested in whatever you're offering, even though you're not explicitly offering. And so she's almost like isolating herself.
That's super true. So this whole subplot is Bella saying, hey, like, I don't want to go with you. I'm going to go to Seattle. She devises this fake subplot, which she kind of attempts to make real, but it's really just her excuse because I'm clumsy, I can't dance, and whatever. So after she denies a couple of these dudes, she sets about pairing off her friend group with each other. And this whole subplot between Jessica and Mike, it's kind of painful. Like, if you look at it from, like, divesting yourself from Bella as a reader, like, you are Bella, right? That's how you're meant to read her. But if you look at Jessica and Mike as standard 17-year-old characters, you have to feel sorry for them because Jessica is really not at fault in this entire storyline, and Mike is absolutely infatuated with Bella, and yet he's asking Bella to the spring dance, like, in a roundabout way, and Jessica's just standing on the sidelines like, oh, here's the new girl, she's pretty, everyone's obsessed with her. And yet I have liked this guy probably since elementary school because we've all gone to the same schools since, kindergarten, and he refuses to give me the time of day.
Again, this spoke to me on, like, a fucking emotional level, which makes me a little bit nervous about, the end message of this. But again, like, I feel like I experienced this viscerally, like, these people that should probably, end up or date or ask out these people that they're already in this, like, primordial, destined relationship with. But all of a sudden you introduce this, like, new shiny thing and they're like, oh my God, do you want to come to the dance with me? And it's like, you're not necessarily seeing me as a person. You're just seeing me as, like, a new thing. And you feel like you have to ask them out even though, like, you don't see me. And it's just this, like, it was disturbing. That's absolutely the adjective that I will, prescribe to this experience as I was reading fucking Twilight again as a older person that has a spouse that, doesn't have to necessarily, like, go through this
Stable
experience. Yeah, it was disturbing that absolutely this was my experience as a kid, as a junior, as going through high school as, like, a, import to this high school that, like, people will ask you out to the dance, but they don't necessarily like you as a person. They're just like, you're the new thing, and I feel like I should ask you, and you're new, and I don't know you as, like, a middle schooler, and I didn't go through that, like, awkward phase with you. Like, you're interesting, I'm gonna ask you, but it's like, do you even know me?
So this is an interesting point because it kind of tracks with the Cullen family as a character set, because Bella, from her description as a character, like, super pale, doesn't fit in Phoenix, is other when she arrives in Forks, despite kind of seeming like the normal population. She tracks as not being like other kids, and it's weird, right? Like, she's always portrayed as other, not quite like other 17-year-olds, doesn't fit at home where she's meant to be. And it's this device that consistently set her up as, like, oh, you're never going to be with a guy like Mike. You're always going to be with someone other, paranormal, special, like Edward.
Please go on to this next period because, like, freaking prima.
Okay, so moving on, we've established that all of the guys have obsessed over Bella as the new girl and accepted her to, like, asked her to go to the spring dance, and she has denied them. Another day passes, and Edward invites Bella to sit with him at lunch away from his family and her friends as a sign that they're taking their relationship to the next level, which is so demonstrative. Is that the right word? How do you say that?
Yeah, no shot. You're good.
Okay, good, excellent. But I can remember being in high school thinking like, oh, you sit with your friends, these people sit with each other. And like, if you differentiate from that rule set, something's going on. And she differentiates from that rule set and sits with someone new. And obviously that means like, oh, we are different from everyone else. So during this time, she bounces some theories off of Edward regarding what he might be. So radioactive spiders, Superman, kryptonite, etc. So he explains to Bella that none of these apply, obviously. Like, you're dumb. It's okay. You're cute. You're dumb, but we're moving on. And
Quaint theory.
keep trying. But by the way, I'm not going to be at biology class today. I'm going to go, do whatever, fuck off. And that's it. So she goes to biology, which seems to be the central point of school for Bella as a character and everyone else. It's either biology or gym. We get no other classes. I would like to note that there is no details provided about math class.
Well, I mean, trig is like a reoccurring theme because that's the only class that Jessica and Bella have together. So it's the only time that they can like gossip. I feel like I should also like comment on the fact that I love this sober, but then when I've had like a drink or two, I'm like, oh, this is like not good. Like this is like he's isolating her, and the fact that like biology the one class that they have together when he can like exacerbate the fact that that's how you say that word, exacerbate.
I heard what you say.
Exacerbate.
No, there's not a hard T there in the middle. Exacerbate.
Exacerbate.
No, it's exacer.
What? Okay,
so take a shot.
Okay, so I don't even have one. This Bella shot class is not full. But the fact that like biology class is the only class that you have with this hot guy, you're attracted with him or attracted to him, and you think that he's attracted to you, and that's the only like I fucking relate to Bella so much that it makes me a little bit embarrassed, but also like now from, the gloves off perspective of being drunk, like this is so scary. Like he's like, oh, biology class is where I'm going to make all these strides in our relationship. This is where I'm going to tell you that I didn't like you, and all of a sudden I like you, and you shouldn't say yes to all these people to go into the dance, and you're different. And it's like, that's so scary.
It's scary and controlling and not healthy. Yeah. It's not okay. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. While she takes a shot for exacerbate, or 1/10 of a shot, it looks like.
I tried.
Just want to say too, from a guy's perspective, like I actually did find myself relating to Bella's social anxiety, her hangups about normal high school rituals. I found that all very relatable myself too. So just so you know, like there's a guy side of this too, where we're like, yeah, no, we love to go to prom and go dancing and stuff like that. Like, nah, we don't. Like, even if they seem enthusiastic about it, there might be ulterior motives. So,
Edward's thing is that he's skipping out on biology class that particular day, and he doesn't specify why. So, come to find out, she arrives at biology class, and they're doing blood typing. So, as an aside, I never did blood typing in biology. It's fucking weird.
I did this in 8th grade.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blood typing?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, well, whatever. I guess it's normal.
New age.
Okay.
Gen Z.
Shut up, Katie.
We're interested in making blood donations.
This was the science.
But of course, Bella gets sick and faint at the sight of blood, and Mike gallantly escorts her to the nurse's office, only on the way to be interrupted by Edward, who sees them and literally scoops Bella off her feet, 110 pounds of her, because as a reader, we're made very clear at how much she weighs at this point.
Fair.
Triggered.
Noteworthy.
Yeah. And carries her to the nurse's office, and Mike is just left standing on his own. I want to interject as a point for Mike, because I feel like Mike is the character who doesn't get his due justice in this story. He is.
But also, so controversially speaking, maybe, there's always going to be a Mike, that like person that you're not really sexually attracted to, is the nice guy, but he doesn't deserve some kind of like outcome from whatever your relationship is. There's always going to be that guy. And I feel like this kind of, not got off on, because that sounds bad. But it like took advantage of the Mikes of the world that like, oh, Mike is going to be the guy that you can, he is always trying to get ahead in the world, but you're not really going to like him because you're always looking to Edward. But it's like, I don't like him. You don't like him. He's not the end goal.
So he's not
he's there.
He's not special compared to the special character that would not normally exist in real life. But like, if you were to take Mike and put him in the real world and put all of his actions, like he stands up for Bella in gym class, always accept her as a teammate. Like, oh, you suck at sports, but I will be your teammate because I want to protect you, and like I want to take you to the dance because I like you and I'm immediately attracted to you. Mike does all of the right things at the right time, and the only thing that makes Mike bad is the fact that Edward exists.
Mike is the good guy.
Oh, that's even better than how I would have phrased it. Because I was going to phrase it. The only thing that makes Mike bad is that he doesn't glitter in sunlight.
Exactly.
But you're right. It's that Edward exists. But yeah, if Mike looked like Paul Giamatti, it's objectionable.
Think the spy movie that
your readership, your
I'm
listenership.
blue da da dee da da da
He's
do
in-
do 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 do.
Paul
The
Giamatti.
spy movie that fucking whatever that guy's name is.
So if you've ever seen The Illusionist with
girl, no.
Yeah.
What are the other movies that he's in that he plays the rich asshole guy and there's
mean
the
to-
kid
I
spy?
didn't mean to derail this. He was just a.
He's in Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, it's a very
yeah.
it's a very unflattering comparison
So-
because I cited him as a traditionally unattractive man.
It's not
If
any
Edward
of
had looked
these
like
books.
Paul Giamatti,
Or
go ahead
movies.
and Google him. If Edward
This
had
is
looked
not
like Paul
helping.
Giamatti, this
Fucking
would not have
Disney
worked.
movie with the kid who's like a teenage spy. Amanda Bynes is in it, and they end up together.
This episode is an homage to poor Mike, who normally would be the
Poor
hero.
sweet
Or Mike.
was
Okay,
a
but
decent
also
guy.
it's kind of annoying when you have those characters that you're not physically attracted to, you're not attracted to in any sense, and they are constantly the good guy, and you're like, I don't see any reality where this is working. Like, it's annoying that they are made out as the good guy. Like, sometimes you need that Edward that's like, okay, I'm someone, Edward is someone I'm physically attracted to. I feel the tension with. I want to make all of these grand leaps about. That's who the end goal is. Like Edward or Mike is not deserving of some end.
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
Okay, no. I want to interrupt right there because this is the scene that is pivotal to me as an adult reader, not a 17-year-old reading this book. Because immediately after the blood typing, Edward rescues Bella and takes her to the nurse's office. And so she spends some time there. They leave. She's doing okay because she obviously just felt faint. And she resolves, you know what? I don't feel up to gym class. I need to go home. And Edward, instead of saying, you know what? That's a good idea. I support you. He drags her to his car. He says, you know what? You're not in a good state to drive yourself home. I'm going to force you to my vehicle. I will drive you home. I'm not going to listen to you or validate any of your feelings or trust the fact that you're saying you're okay, and just say that I am going to take care of you. You're not a good judge of how you can take care of yourself. And that is where like I just had immediate problems with Edward as a character, with Bella as a character, being okay with this character who decides to be physically controlling of her.
Ugh.
Yeah, no matter what her protestations or pronouncements about her own boundaries were, he just overruled her. And that was fundamentally, it'd be one thing if it was 17-year-old to 17-year-old. You're both working shit out, right? You're both negotiating. Like, I'm not sure where my own limits are. I'm not sure how to respect another person's interests and appetites are. But this dude's more than a 100-year-old man. I get it. He's pretending to be a high school student. But I guess one of the things that fundamentally struck me as problematic is like, here's this 17-year-old who's doing the right thing because it seems like the right thing to him, despite his naivety and inexperience. And a 100-year-old man comes along and manipulates her into, maybe for better or worse. Like, I'll be honest, I can't recall the explicit details of this scene, whether or not he was forcing her to like, nope, you're going to retire for the day so that you can recover and blah, blah, blah. Whether or not he did it for her own sake.
Okay, so I very vividly remembered this scene because I wrote it down. He grabs her because she tries to walk away. He grabs her by the back of her jacket and forces her to his car. And, I am completely a fan of saying, okay, this is paranormal fiction. This is fantasy fiction. This is just escapism for the reader. At the moment where it seems to portray like it's okay to attempt to control another person because they're not capable of controlling or explaining themselves, it infuriated me to see that it was portrayed as okay for this character to completely physically and emotionally manipulate this other person into doing and following their own will because that's what they thought was okay.
Because the opposite side of this, so sober, let me caveat that. I thought the scene was like, oh my God, he's like taking care of her. He, knows best. Like he needs to, he sees what she needs and he's like, okay, you're trying to be strong for everyone else, but I'm going to take you out of this scenario. You need to go home. You need to rest. But drunk, Katie, which hot takes apparently, this is a little bit, like controlling, like he apparently knows
extremely abusive.
Yeah, what is best for her. And it's hard because like in that situation, you're like, oh my God, this person recognizes me. They know what I need. They know, that I'm searching for something like, the blood typing was a little bit too much. Like I need to be taken home. I need to rest. But it's like, that's not maybe actually what's happening.
And that's not what the character needs. Like, and maybe this is a lot, but I've been in a position where I have had another person take control of myself and dictate what I should do because that's what they thought what was best for me. But is that actually best for me in a long-term perspective, or is that best for them and our relationship?
Ooh.
Oh, really?
That was like hurt groaning. Yeah. Let me caveat that.
Well, I mean, that said, I'm in the room with two other people I've known for years. Like, if I felt they were in a position where they were making a bad decision for someone, I would get very assertive. Like, no, listen to me. I give a damn. Trust in the fact that I give a damn. And just listen to my decision. At the same time, I'd kind of reverse that. I never get that vibe from Edward, which... Actually, upon reflection, maybe that's one of the clearest reflections of the fact that he is an immortal, because I do feel like the writing oftentimes does not reflect the fact that he is an immortal with an immortal perspective and does not view the ephemeral qualities of life, the one-offs, the occasionals, as the sort of things that one encounters incidentally day to life. He just seems very domineering, very controlling, and very two-dimensional. He seems to be sandwiched between his own bloodlust and his own inexplicable desire to not harm, which largely goes unexplored in this first book.
Because is that intentional on Stephenie Meyer's perspective? Like, did she purposely write him as someone domineering that like understands all the nuance, or did she write him as someone that like, irrespective of those opinions, is he just someone that's domineering? Or it's like, I understand all those, nuance, secondary feelings, but I think that, the overwhelming perspective is that like, you need a little bit time of rest, like you've been overwhelmed by these craziness, like, do you just need a time to rest? Or is this like, I am someone that thinks I know best for you and I'm telling you that you need to
I think that's probably one of the criticisms of Edward as a character, is that he's not consistent in his portrayal as an immortal or as a 17-year-old who can't grow up.
Yeah, and I would say, too, that well, no, actually, I think that's a very succinct way of putting it, that he's a 17-year-old who can't grow up, which is kind of incredible. The whole time I was reading, it was like I was expecting him to be a 100-year-old man with 100 years worth of experience and not just 100 years of experience, but a perspective on life which involved him being immune to many of life's worries, disease and poverty and injury and things like that. The vagaries of life. He's largely immune to it. And for the most part, he just seems to be a typical 17-year-old who just wants to be domineering and controlling and acts on impulse. And yeah, fundamentally, I just thought that was so unrealistic and problematic. Like, it's just uncreative writing in my perspective.
I love the fact that like 17-year-old, characteristic perspectives are so dominant that like even 100 years of experience will not be,
I get it. I know what it's like to be.
But it's also true.
Yeah.
Okay, getting us back to the actual plot. So Edward forces Bella to his car. He drives her home and they bond over music, which, at turns I thought was compelling to some extent because he plays a piece of classical music that Bella immediately identifies as Claire de Lune. And he questions her about her relationship with her mom. So Edward, it's in this scene that he comments about the contrast between Bella's physical age and her behavior, which is Bella responds and says, "My mom says I was born 35 and I get more middle-aged every year." And this is significant, I think, for both the reader that's being catered to and just in general, which is, this is, yes, a 17-year-old character, but it should appeal to everyone from age 12 to age 45, 65. You should be able to see yourself in this character, which, great. Yeah, that's a well-designed character, but also problematic when you introduce themes of like controlling heroes and domineering personality traits. Edward soon after explains that, he and his brothers are going camping near Mount Rainier. Beautiful, by the way, if you've never seen it, and won't be around for a while.
Pick of the week.
Mount Rainier is the pick of the week.
It really is. It is one of the glories of Washington State if you've never been here. Anyway, so moving on. The next pivotal point in the story is the beach trip to La Push. And it's at this one in the story where Bella and Mike and Angela, Jessica, the clique of high school heads out to the beach for, a breakaway. And at the beach, they meet the childhood friend, which I don't recall if we've introduced before.
I don't think so, but so Sober Katie thinks that, Team Edward all the way. Drunk Katie? Team Jacob, perchance all the way, maybe like 75% of the way, 25% is still answered by, Team Edward. But also, yeah.
A little bit of background for Jacob. Now, prior to the movie and the cultural phenomenon that was Twilight, Bella acquires her very antiquated truck from Billy and Jacob, who are members of the Quileute tribe. They are close friends with Charlie, Bella's dad. They sell Bella's truck to Charlie. That is the dynamic there. And they've also grown up with each other. So Jacob and Bella kind of played with each other as kids.
They made mud pies together.
This is a theme later on that appears. And so Jacob is a little bit younger. He's like 15 or 16 to Bella 17. And which, if you recall, being a teenager, that's a significant change.
Jacob is a child.
So she goes to the beach with her friend group. Jacob is there with a few of his friends from the reservation. And this is awkward.
Questionable morally.
Yeah. Bella starts to hear some rumblings of a rumor surrounding the Cullen family. So during the beach trip, Jacob tells the story of the cold ones. And we get to witness Barra's...
I could not tell you what word that was supposed to be.
Barra's gets a shot.
She's trying to flirt, does not work.
It's terrible. So we get to witness...
Is that a rhyme?
Sure.
Flirt. But also, it did work.
Bella's attempt at flirting with a 15-year-old. And it's just awkward.
Controversial opinion. As a 17-year-old, I feel like that's exactly how I would attempt to flirt in a,
I didn't even attempt when I was that age.
Well, it's like you're trying to take advantage almost of a younger person, and you're like, oh my God, I'm hot.
But is she?
Wink, wink.
She
to
does that.
Jacob, she is.
How old is Jacob in this?
He's 15.
Baby.
So she put the pieces together after Jacob's story that the Cullens are the old ones. All
what?
Oh my God, the Cullens are the cold ones. And when she gets home from the beach trip, which is kind of uneventful outside of Jacob's story, she does some old school internet research. And so this book was written during the time of like internet modems when like dial-up was still a thing.
That was confusing for me, I'll be honest.
The Cullen family is still away from school when Bella, Jessica, and Angela all decide to go to Port Angeles to pick out dresses for the spring dance. Bella tags along on this like girl shopping trip because she, to quote fucking Stephenie Meyer, needs the estrogen hit, which is fucking weird, right?
God, I hated that.
But I also feel that.
Like, no, I'm with you. Like, there's a girl sense of like bonding over like, oh, you look good. I'm going to validate that you look good in this dress.
Yep.
That's totally a thing.
Yeah.
But that she made it like this deliberate instance of Bella acknowledging both that she's going for that thing and doing that thing was fucking weird.
Yeah, because I feel like it's always like unintentional. Like you're like, oh, I want to hang out with my girlfriends, go dress shopping, look at cute things. But it's always like halfway through that you're like, I'm not really having fun anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like she made this super intentional, but it's like it's not intentional at the forefront. You think like this is actually going to be fun, and then it's like halfway.
It's like meant to make Bella appeal to other females.
Yeah.
Which was, okay.
Again, this whole novel feels like unintentional when you're like sober reading it, and then you like drunk read it and you're like,
this is
feels
wrong.
not good.
So anyway, it's a successful trip, and after finding dresses, Bella kind of peels away on her own to go check out this local bookstore in a city she's never been to before. There's no like cell phones at this era, right? Like that's not a common thing, so she doesn't have that. And her friends are totally like, yeah, we'll meet back up at the restaurant. You go off and do your own thing. I don't know about you, but I remember prior to the cell phone age, and that would never have been okay.
I was fully in the cell phone age, and this was like a dream that you could have like your little like cute moment, and then when you got like I'm not really into this anymore, I'm gonna like go off and do my own like older person, I read books thing.
Like you like dresses, I like books. I'm gonna go be an adult is kind of how this came across.
Yeah, but I again I feel like I'm speaking to my issues here, but I related to this, that she wanted to go find a book. She wanted to go find a bookstore. She was, you know, interested in other issues that normal 17-year-old girls were. But then it turned out bad, and then someone rescued her.
But also, so not okay. I would have never left a fellow friend alone. Like, oh, you.
But that's the dream, though, is that you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah, but still, like, realistically, I would never have let another friend go wander a city by themselves. Like, oh, you want to go to a bookstore as a friend? I don't like to go to a bookstore, but I'm going to go with you because that's what you want to do.
Exactly.
Never would have happened. Like, I cannot imagine a reality where I would have gone, even if I kind of liked the other person I was traveling with, let them go off by themselves in a city they've never been to before.
Absolutely not. Girl code.
Yeah.
Take care of your own.
Oh.
Okay, so that's
he does not understand the girl.
He does not get it. So Bella goes off to find a bookstore. She gets lost, and as she's trying to make her way through the city of Los Angeles, some shady-looking dudes start to follow her, and she's aware that she's wandered too far off the beaten path. She's not in the tourist zone anymore. And then she gets cornered. So this group of dudes kind of separate and corner her. Like a couple are following her, a couple are ahead of her. And she realizes, oh shit, I've been trapped. Like, what do I do? I left my pepper spray in my backpack or at home, whatever, fill in the blank. Basically, she's a damsel. She needs to be rescued. And it's getting to the absolute ultimate moment where like either things are going to go to shit or she's going to get rescued. And then out of nowhere, this shiny silver car speeds up, flips around, pulls like a J-turn or something. The passenger door like flips open. Edward's sitting in the car and he's like, get the fuck in the car or something like that.
Because again, this speaks to the 17-year-old perspective that, you know, reasonably, you're not going to be let alone to go look at books and pursue your own interests. Like there's always going to be someone like protecting you or, you know, an outside perspective looking in at you and making sure you're okay. But it's like the one time you do that, you're in trouble all of a sudden, and then there's someone to rescue you.
Yeah, but so he's been away from school for days. Like he has no idea she's in Port Angeles. And he's
but again, it like speaks to
no,
someone
no,
else.
No. I don't disagree with you. Like 17-year-old Jordan was like full send on this.
Yep.
Like, oh, save me, please.
Yep. Someone recognizing your needs before you even recognize them.
Yeah, exactly.
A+.
Yep.
But not A+ from like a I'm going to put you in my cult
But,
perspective.
like, if you look at this from like an older perspective, like the way we're treating it, seeing this dude come out of nowhere when he, if you look at all of the circumstances leading up to this particular scene, had no idea that you were even in Port Angeles, and he shows up out of nowhere to save you, stalkered me. And creepy as fuck.
Which is crazy though, because from like the 17 perspective, you're not thinking of creepers, you're not thinking of stalkers, you're just thinking of someone that like recognizes your needs, like someone that recognizes the fact that you're trying to do something. Yeah, you're trying to do something you want, and then all of a sudden someone else is intruding on that and trying to take advantage of you, but you want someone that just respects the fact that you just wanted to go to a bookstore.
It's so fucking unhealthy. Anyway, Edward shows up,
but it's cute though.
It's cute if you're
from a sober perspective,
and you don't recognize the fact that this is extremely complicated and not okay. So he rescues her. He takes her to the restaurant that she was supposed to meet Angela and Jessica at, and they have just finished eating when she and Edward show up, which again, like I would never accept that as like, even if we're only remote friends, I would never just be like, oh, you know what? I haven't seen this girl for hours. We were supposed to meet up here for dinner and she's not here. That's not okay. So this is the point where it diverges from like realistic 17-year-old behavior to like, oh, we're just going to make plot decisions to push the romantic relationship along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it makes sense from the like 17-year-old dreamscape reality.
Yeah, dreamscape, but not realistic in the slightest. And you could make paranormal romance realistic in a sense.
Yeah.
But this is not how any 17-year-old, even if you were operating in a fantasy setting, would operate. Like, I would never let them go off on their own with someone. I would never like, oh, I'm going to sit down and have dinner, knowing that my friend is or acquaintance is lost in the city and is not eating with me. Like, not okay. Sorry, that was a rant. I'm going to drink.
It's depressing though. That you can't go out and just like go to a bookstore and do whatever you want without like some negative, scary man or person trying to, intrude on that. Like, I feel like it kind of breaks the 17-year-old dream perspective that you can just go out and do whatever you want without having someone that's like overwatching or protecting you. Like, it's just that scary kind of required safety measure that you have someone that's protecting you, that you can't just like go and do whatever you want, that you need that. And it's just kind of speaking to reality, I guess.
That kind of feeds into like their whole experience dining too, where he's like, okay, you need to eat. I'm going to watch you eat, which is another characteristic of a controlling relationship and personality, which is I'm going to dictate your needs and desires at every point of the day, to the point where I'm going to tell you if you need to eat, a basic human like necessity. Yeah. And so they're sitting at this restaurant and he's like, you're going to eat something. And it's in this scene where Bella witnesses Edward have this interaction with this extremely beautiful like hostess and waitress. Mm-hmm. And they're fawning all over him, and he couldn't give them the time of day because she's there.
Yeah.
What 17-year-old doesn't desire that?
Yeah, exactly. The like twisting of the desires to meet basic needs to eat, but also with the need to be like recognized as more beautiful, more interesting than someone else that's maybe like more beautiful than you are. That Edward recognizes like, no, I'm the one that you're interested in. You want to take care of me, but it's like recognizing that, like that speaks to every 17-year-olds to be seen as like an adult, to be seen as an individual. I'm so sorry, I'm slurring my words. But also like it still, speaks to what every 17-year-old wants to know. And I think that's kind of the scary part of Twilight, that it like sounds cute from a surface
Please take a shot.
But like from a surface perspective.
From a perspective, take a shot.
From a certificate's perspective.
I mean, like 17-year-olds want to be seen.
And I want to see you take a shot.
Sorry, that was one of my notes on Edward, is that, as I've said before in the podcast or in previous episodes, that he does seem very two-dimensional, and that he's just strung between his bloodlust and his self-restraint. And insofar as he's interested in Bella, that again comes back to a bloodlust because her scent is intoxicating, and his self-restraint, and that he doesn't want to murder her because she's so fascinating. So one of the things that I think is interesting about or maybe not interesting, but it's one of my critiques about the writing is that Edward he's such a simplistic character. If I had to guess, and I hate to impute the motives of the author, Stephenie Meyer, but it does seem to me like she started with the idea of what would ultimate wish fulfillment for a 17-year-old introvert look like. And then she built a character to check every box.
I feel seen.
He's incredibly seductive. He's mysterious. He's powerful. Not only all of that, it's setting all of that aside despite your, I don't want to say banality, but like she's appealing to to a general audience of a nerdy, bookish girl in high school. Despite all that, despite a century of experience, of lifetime experience, having lived through history, despite all that, not only is he interested in you, but he's interested in you in an eternal way, in the form of almost a chemical addiction. And in that sense, I think Edward is built as
heroin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, that's the comparison.
Yeah, heroin with an E, but for his heroin without an E. And that's kind of one of my core criticisms with the book is that Edward seems so simplistic in that he is just an object of obsession, which obsesses equally passionately back to the protagonist, who is in fact a proxy for the reader.
So this actually is a great segue into how we conclude part 2, which is they leave Port Angeles, Edward takes her home, and after she arrives, back at home, she has this dramatic realization that she is unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I have read that line, irrevocably in love, and it's just so misplaced in this book. Because they've interacted all of 3 or 4 times. You cannot be in love with someone after that number of interactions. It's completely surface level. It's shallow. It does injustice to the word of romantic love.
But again, from the 17-year-old's perspective, that's all it takes.
I know but this is page 195 out of
400.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's in love with him now.
Yeah.
And that's from the 17-year-old perspective, but I really don't think Bella is poorly drawn as a 17-year-old, and with her obsessions and infatuations and the competing interests that she experiences and stuff throughout the book. I think she's actually pretty well drawn. The struggle, I think, is the author fails to convey what you might expect from the experience of a 100-year-old man who should have a much more tempered approach, while he, as we're soon to, we'll get to this summary.
17-year-old
as he
child.
seduces a 17-year-old, and then confesses his his undying and unrelenting devotion to this 17-year-old girl. Just seems like I have a hard time respecting a character like him with 100 years of experience who fails to doubt his own impulses. I mean, that seems like I know that he's not human in the strictest sense. But I mean, it does make me question the drawing of the character, and that he does not second guess his own impulses, which is to say, oh, yeah, I'm in love with you. Your scent is intoxicating, and I've never experienced anything like you. Well, pause for a moment. Do you really think after 4 encounters that you should confess your devotion and your lifelong commitment to this person? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
But that kind of speaks to part 2 of Twilight, is that's his eternal question, or his eternal kind of confusion, is that throughout the second part of Twilight is he almost feels like he's saying goodbye throughout the whole thing. He's constantly on the edge of I know I'm not good for you, but I can't help myself. But it's always on the edge of I am 2 seconds away from saying goodbye to you because I know what's best for you.
Okay, yes, also that point, but that's another mechanism to force the decision on the other character to be oh, I can't bring myself to say no because I'm suffering X amount, right? So now it's on Bella to be oh, I see you and how much you're suffering, and I'm going to be the strong one. It kind of tracks as a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's never okay for someone with Edward's amount of experience.
Yeah. Which I kind of think speaks to the dichotomy of him as a character. He is also a person who, wants to have an emotional relationship with someone else, but he's also a predator in the way that he is, a vampire. He is built to be something that's attractive to regular humans, that he has I feel like I said
you said humans wrong, and that's a shot, Katie.
Girl, it's empty. Humans, he has, eternal beauty. He has eternal, all of these crazy, abilities and stuff. But he's also just, a human, and he has all these built-in things. So it kind of speaks that dichotomy. Like, is he
That's fair.
attracting Bella of his own impulse, or is he attracting Bella as like potential prey? And I feel like that's kind of speaks to Edward's character throughout like this book and all of them. And that's his struggle too, is like, am I actually attracted to Bella, or is this more of a like, I want to drink her blood?
So I will grant you that Edward is consistently portrayed as like the outcast of his own family, where he's younger and less mature and less experienced and needing to find himself and his purpose. But it's just, it feels wrong in the context of Bella as a normal 17-year-old. And she's even not quite normal, but so even given her maturity and her level of experience, almost portrayed as an adult, taking care of her own parents, it's still too much, I think, a difference between her and Edward. But, you know, following this Port Angeles experience, he saves her, they return, and this is kind of the kickoff to like the beginning of their relationship. They're a couple now. It's a weird couple. They're not quite sure of what they are in relation to each other and to other people, but they definitely know that they're together and they're just still figuring that out. So the spring dance comes along, and instead of going to Seattle as Bella had kind of assumed she would as an excuse for these dudes asking her, Edward asks her if she would go with him to this other place. And she's like, you know what? You're hot. I'm going to go with you no matter what. Yeah. So that is the end of part 2 of Twilight. That's a lot of back and forth, a lot of debate and discussion as far as the value of these characters. So,
like emotional arguments.
Yeah, I feel like we've been more invested in this character set than we've been in before. So,
but it deserves it, because I feel like Twilight is the quintessential like cultural moment of, you know, the early 2010s. Like everyone saw themselves as Bella, and it's like, it's something that deserves kind of a dissection of like, why did we see ourselves as Bella? Like, what do we see attractive in Edward? And I feel like we kind of like skim past it as like we just all want that like controlling male figure, but it's like, do we?
What's wrong with ourselves internally that we need someone to come in and control ourselves for us?
Especially the fucking like book talk book that's like super popular right now, Haunting Adeline.
I don't want to talk about that book. You'll get me all sorts of spun
Did
up.
you try reading it?
No, I didn't.
I didn't
sitting
either.
in my sample shelf.
Yeah.
I've heard so many bad things about it.
Yeah, but I've also heard so many good things about it. But I feel like it speaks to the exact audience that saw themselves in Bella. And so I feel like it's like a book, a cultural moment that deserves a little bit more dialogue than, you know, it's just been written off as a bunch of 17-year-old girls that are like, oh, you know, I'm a fan of, you know, Team Edward or Team Bella. Like, it deserves a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more dissection of like, why? And again, like, even as a 27-year-old, I'm like, you know, Twilight was good. Like, I liked it. Like, it's someone recognizing your needs, but it's like, maybe let's recognize like why Edward was recognizing her needs. Like, was it the predator in him, or was it like the actual lover? And I think it kind of, you know, tends toward the predator.
This is a great question for you readers. How did you find Twilight? Like, if you read it as a young teenager, if you're reading it now as an older adult, what is your perspective? We want to know. Please chime in. We'd be curious if you align with, there's some value in this. There's, you know, a good character development as far as how the relationship progresses. Just tell us.
Outside of the movie is like a comfort movie. Let's like caveat that.
The movie is a separate episode for a reason. With that, thank you for listening this far. And from our shelf to yours,
we'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.
Bussin'.